All right, guys, I've not done this before, but I am live now with my mate Jay Saul, one of my best friends, even though I've never ever met him in my life. How are you doing today, Jay Saul, mate? You good?
Doing great, thank you.
Excellent. So, do you want to tell everybody how you came across my work or how we came across each other so organically?
Yeah, so basically I was in one of those discords for decoding, and you were one of the few people that caught my eye as far as my respect for the decodes that you were posting.
Thank you.
And I just had a genuine resonation with you. So I messaged you, and I believe that was on May 17th this year.
Yes, you remember the exact date, don't you? Which is incredible. May the 17th, that can be written the 17th of May, like 175, like Pope Francis. And you know, I love myself some Pope Francis, don't you, in my decodes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So, guys, I came across Jay Soul, and ever since he's almost been, sounds really weird, guys, one of my best friends over the last year, even though I've never met this guy in person, never shook his hand, never directly looked him in the eye, other than through a phone call. And out of everybody in this community, because there's a lot of amazing people, a lot of really smart, open-minded people, Jay Soul's the guy who I've learned from the most. And it's not even close, guys. This guy's knowledge, mesmerizing. So he was the one who really got me into date durations. I was always really good with the gematria. I have a lot of knowledge about historical events and all that sort of stuff, but it was Jay Soul who taught me about date durations, and it's really taken my codes to the next level. So Jay Soul, do you mind telling everybody how you came across date durations and why you think they're so important in decodes?
Sure. Thank you so much, lad. I really appreciate your kind words.
Thank you.
And yeah, so basically, watching the different decoders on the different, gematria decode discords, I noticed a few different decoders that were using more date durations from, like, let's say 1960 or 1963, like perfectly lining up to the date in 2021 and for a win or a loss. So once I noticed that, I just went deeper and deeper and realized that the date durations pretty much need to be in sync for me to feel confident a team's going to win.
Isn't it wild, the knowledge that we've acquired on this journey? Like, as soon as you said 63, I'm thinking, okay, that's when MLK gave his I Have a Dream speech. 63, Kobe Bryant retired in 2016, the 63rd try. It's amazing how we have these syncs with these numbers now. Like, the knowledge that we've gained on this journey is pretty special, isn't it?
It's so special, and it's funny you say that now that I think of it. Like 1960 was the year that JFK's son was born,
Okay.
and 1963 is when JFK died. And then you have 1960 can also be written 196, which is the average atomic weight of gold. So it's
wow,
a lot of fun, yeah.
So JFK died 3 years after his son was born, for another 3.
Yep.
They love that number, don't they? It's undeniable that the number 3 is an incredibly important number to the occult or to the universe. It's a magical number, it seems.
It's funny you say that, because it was actually 3 days before his son's birthday as well.
Oh my word. We've often used JFK in our codes, Martin Luther King in our codes, obviously Pope Francis, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady. Is there anything else in particular? I know you're a big fan of using the moon landing, aren't you? Can you think of some examples where you've used the moon in a decode or the moon landing?
Yeah, like for instance, there was a day that was 52 years and 115 days from the moon landing, with those being the 2 top date numerologies for that day. That day was filled with moon codes, obviously. Off the top of my head,
Bucks, didn't we? We had the Milwaukee Bucks that just won the NBA Finals on the anniversary of the moon landing.
Absolutely. And that was also the anniversary of Hank Aaron's last home run. And he had played for the Milwaukee Braves and the Atlanta Braves. And the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Braves both won this year. And Hank Aaron died this year.
Yeah. And what date did Hank die again? Was it 122?
Yep.
And what else happened historically on that date with Kobe Bryant?
His 666 game where he scored 81 points in
Yeah, and his
2006.
full name, Kobe Bean Bryant, equals 81.
Yep.
You caught this one. So next year, you saw that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be playing the Atlanta Hawks on January the 17th, 117. The Braves, Atlanta, just won the 117th World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That was all you. There's no way that's an accident, is it, that they're playing on that day?
No, it's simply incredible. I mean, when you have the two teams that are connected to Hank Aaron and they played in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, I mean, come on.
Yes, they did. There was that as well. And Atlanta Hawks were a major shock, wasn't they, when they knocked out Philly, obviously where Kobe was born.
Yeah. And Budenholzer, the coach of the Bucks, was also the coach of the Hawks.
Wow, yeah, that is a very good point. And we had Giannis, didn't we? He was the MVP last year. Well, this year, a huge year from the number 34. So we know Giannis wears the number 34. Bucks in gematria equals 34. He was born on the 340th day of the year. It's interesting that Kobe and Gianna Bryant died on the day leaving 340 days left in the year, with Giannis being born on 12/6 and Gianna and Kobe dying on 1/26. Very, very interesting. And I've mentioned before with football how Argentina won the Copa America. Lionel Messi, their legend, was 34 years old when he won that. The final was his 34th game in the competition. And Italy won the European Championship, having going 34 games undefeated. So wow. 34, a big number, because Freemasonry was found 304 years ago. So 34 has been hitting big.
You've been having a lot of 34 codes that were hitting.
Yeah, there's so many of them. And Freemasonry gets you 139 in gematria, the 34th prime.
Wow.
So, yeah, lots of 34s. But what I'd like to say, though, this knowledge is absolutely mind-blowing, but it doesn't guarantee constant success when it comes to gambling, does it? It's important that people...
It is not.
So can you just tell everybody why you believe this sacred information is way more important than just winning an extra book?
Sure. It's not all about the money. It's really about being able to see the puzzle as a whole, and just enjoying the fact that you're able to do so. It's really a blessing. And
every code you learn, don't you? You learn something like huge. Whether
sometimes
you lose, the information is just so mind-blowing.
My biggest learning has probably came from my losses.
Absolutely, yeah. Same with me.
You know, so, and that goes for life as well. When we lose, we're able to see why, and then really learn and sharpen everything to where that does not happen again.
Well, you've always said, haven't you, when you take a break, you've taken a few breaks from it, because it does take a lot of your energy, that you've always come back like even better.
I've always came back so much stronger. Like I went from losing a lot, you know, many times in a row before I was this to this degree and this level. And I took a break for, I believe, 2 months, came back, and I've been soaring ever since, for the most part.
Yeah, you and I together have gone on runs, haven't we, where we've gone like 10 in a row correct with perfect codes.
Absolutely.
But we've obviously had amazing codes miss, and it is hard for somebody like myself and you, who I know is also just as competitive. That's a hard thing to deal with, isn't it? It's not always about the money. You take so much pride. Our works, it's our body of work. And when you put hours into a code and it misses, it is frustrating, but we always figure out why it misses, don't we? And then we end up learning from that game and winning the next one because of that.
Yeah, I had 2 recent games that missed, and I was honestly, I had to take a few days off, because I was just like, you know, I still believe in it, but it's just like after that happens, it's very disheartening. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
You got to be mentally strong in this game.
Yeah.
You really have to be, because what people have to be aware of is these codes are so complex. There's date durations, there's astrology, there could have been a death on the day that has a big say in the whole outcomes of all these games. There's so much at play, coaches' records, head-to-heads, star players, all of that. There's so much to it. What about the biblical riddle with the kings? That was all Bible, but not every day the games are connected to the Bible. There's days of the week that all obviously every day is named after a planet. So then you've got to connect them. So this is not easy doing what we do, but there's no doubt in my mind over the month we hit way more than we lose, don't we? And that's the aim of the game, no? In gambling, to win more than we lose.
I would say in the last 3 months, our percentage is pretty high, to be honest.
When we've worked together on codes, it's phenomenally high, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been some shockers, but you know, ultimately speaking, you know what I noticed is one of the biggest things is not decoding over stress and not like forcing it. So like, you know, decoding when you feel like it, and you know, following your curiosities, but not doing it, not forcing it, because whenever we've forced codes, it seems like our percentage is pretty low.
That's what I try and tell my community. So since I stopped gambling this month, my dad inspired that. So thank you, Dad. My codes have been phenomenal because I'm not thinking about the money side of it. I'm not overcomplicating a lot of my codes like I used to, because I was putting big money on the games. I wanted to make sure I covered everything. But sometimes when you cover everything, you end up finding yourself just more confused and maybe even going against your original pick. So now I'm not gambling. I'll see something, I'll find it, I'll post it. And if you watch my recent videos on YouTube, like my Dallas code, which you were involved in, that was perfect. Then the Kings one, and then the football ones that I constantly do. These are perfect codes. This is decoding the script of a game. It's not just saying this team's going to win and a couple of lines like most decoders. It's calling the exact numbers in the game consistently. And I think that is what's going to really start waking people up. Because this is not just guessing a few numbers or putting words together to fit your narrative. It's saying what's going to happen, and it happens. It plays out the way we say it's going to play out. That in itself is mind-blowing still to me after 2 years of doing this.
Yeah. I had been showing 2 of my friends just some synchronicities with I believe it was a football game, maybe I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Are you talking NFL?
Yeah, yep, NFL. And you know, one of my friends said, they were like, you know, are you just making connections where, you know, like, are you just finding numbers and making connections where you want to? And I said, well, and I you know, I didn't want to get egotistical with it, but I had to say, like, how am I able to do this almost every game if I'm just connecting numbers where I want them to?
Yeah, it's very, to be fair though, it's a very, very understandable question, isn't it? For somebody who doesn't know how this works, it is the logical thought process of, well, are you just throwing numbers together? Like anyone can do that. Not until they fully understand how it works, or they'll watch multiple videos of mine or read multiple decodes of yours where they start believing. So a lot of my friends and family, they thought I was losing my mind. I was having a midlife crisis. I was an attention seeker. Not all of them. Some people supported me from the beginning to now. But now the amount of people who've flipped the script like they do in these games and said, Adam, your work's incredible. Like, I can't believe this. I'm sorry I doubted you. That's through perseverance and hard work and just belief. Like, I knew we were onto something over a year ago with pro sports being rigged. And now it's just becoming so painfully obvious. However, there's still billions of people that have no idea, like no idea. And you'll see these insane decisions, ridiculous mistakes, and still people don't question it. Like, what about the pass interference yesterday in the Seahawks game? where everyone in the world saw it was pass interference, and they have cameras and they have extra officials, and they didn't give it, where anybody in the world saw it was a definite error from the officials. Why are fans not around the world saying, hey, this has to be corrupt? That was blatant interference, blatant, undeniable. And they didn't give anything. And it cost the Seahawks the game. So what do you think? Is people under a spell, or is it denial? Is it pride? Is it just they're so far gone that they're not even aware of it? It's just entertainment, like bread and circus. What is it, Jay? So why are so many people unaware of how rigged these sports are when it's pretty blatant? Pretty much every NFL game, prime time goes to the last play. NBA seems to go to the last shot in many of the games, especially in prime time. Soccer, you get last minute winning goals constantly. Are people not putting 2 and 2 together, or are they just maybe focusing on one sport and they're not aware of what's going on in the other sports? Whereas you and I decode every sport, so we see the patterns.
It's a great question. You know, I think one of the biggest things is that we're taught not to question, and you know, maybe people are even just too shy in their nature to even, you know, question, hey, are you professional athletes, not, doing things like doing things on purpose that throw the game, or that win the game, to the point. But then again, lad, like, it comes to a point where we grow up playing sports. You and me are both athletes, and we would never think that someone would throw a game. You hear about it once in a while, like, oh, maybe one time here or there, but we would just never think that this would be the case. So, we are human. So when people screw up, I guess people just assume the best, and assume that person really did just screw up and it wasn't blatant.
True.
But for you and I, we've watched games together, via the telephone, and we've just seen hundreds of games and how they should, if you know what I mean. And so we see it clearly, but it's much easier for us because we see it clearly. And for those that don't, they haven't been in our shoes, so it's tough for them to see it, I would think.
Well, a few years ago, I didn't see it, mate. So it's hard for me to be too harsh on people. You've got to really put in the work. Like the last year and a half, I've given my life to this knowledge and sharing it with other people. A lot of people said, Adam, you could have kept this knowledge to yourself and really gained from it. I was like, I want to share it with as many people as possible. And that's what you and I are like. We really care about people. Of course, you want to win money. You need it in this beast system, and it is a thrill. Absolutely. But with you and I, mate, we've watched so many games together and said, okay, watch what's going to happen the next play. This is going to happen. You go, yep, it's going to happen. And then it happens. And how many times, mate, I've lost count, where we'll say, do you remember the game you said, all right, he's about to throw an interception. And he did. He said he's going to throw an interception right here. I was like, what? Is that it? Watch. Because I don't know, maybe it was like he's made this amount of passes, and on his next one, this is the number that equates to interception. And I don't know, the team he's playing against has that number. You called it exact, and I was like, no way, mate. And then there was a pick.
That's wild. I don't even remember that, but I love it.
And we do it all the time in the NBA, don't we?
Oh, that we do. We'll say like it's going to go to this score or that score, and it does. It really does. When our riddle's right, obviously, not always, but when our riddle's right, which is typically the case, we will call scores that are going to hit during the game.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But again, this knowledge is not just for decoding sports, is it? You can learn so much about history, about maybe where the world's going, about crypto, about politics, about these actors, about Hollywood, about the you-know-what that's been going on, the pandemic. It's incredible. Like this knowledge, and I do believe it's sacred. So do you think in a few years' time there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people who've accessed this knowledge, or do you think in a few years we'll be just so far gone, so robotic, so programmed that there's no chance of it? What do you reckon? I know you're a really positive guy, maybe the most positive guy I know, and you think everything's going to work out in an amazing way. But do you think at some point the world's going to realize that sports are completely corrupt and coded? For me, we can say the word rigged, scripted. For me, I would say all of these games are predetermined before the game begins. That's something I think I can say 100%. How they're doing it, if it's the universe, if it's a simulation, if it's the players, if it's magic, if it's a combination. But do you think that in 2 to 3 years, it's all going to come out like it did with wrestling, that it was all staged and fake and all predetermined? Or do you think it's going to continue for our whole lifetime where most people have no idea about how this all works?
Yeah, that's also a great question, mate. Thank you.
Please.
I would say, yes, I agree with you that this is absolutely sacred knowledge. I think the biggest and most positive thing that it teaches us is what's good for us, whether it's like what's best to eat, what's best to stay away from. For instance, if you watch the media, you stay away typically.
Yeah.
Almost always you stay away from what the media is saying, obviously. It teaches you, I feel like it teaches us how to treat people as well, like to treat with more respect, love, and kindness. Cause like, I know myself, and like when I was younger, I didn't know anything, mate. Like I knew nothing. And like, I was still a good guy and had a good life, but I didn't know any of this cool stuff. Um, and we're no better than anyone else. It's just a matter of, exercising our minds and expanding these new possibilities and potentials that we did not see, like you said, a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, there's nothing wrong with questioning things. You don't have to go around saying, I know everything, you're right, I'm wrong. Because again, what is right and wrong? It's dependent on how the person sees the world.
Yeah.
So my opinion of all of this is every day I learn something new, and I feel like I learn something major every day, and I'll find it myself. Whereas, like you said, with education, you're not taught to question, you're taught to just memorize and do as you're told. And that's by intention. That's just to program us to get used to following orders from people like the government or your boss or whoever it may be. When I was a teacher, which I still am technically because I teach online, I loved them asking me questions. I didn't like asking the question and getting their answer. I loved them asking me questions. And it's hard for these kids right now. Probably any kid growing up in education is because it's just the kid who does the best is the kid who absorbs the knowledge better than the other kid, which is intelligence. That is a form of intelligence. But again, what is intelligence? There's artificial intelligence, there's musical intelligence, there's critical thinking intelligence, there's kinesthetic intelligence. There's all these types of intelligence. Like, you can't define that word. But what I will say, your intelligence is not determined by your degree. There's a lot of people I've met on this journey who never even graduated, and I bet they have more knowledge than the majority of people who have.
Yeah, and I will say, just to answer your last question about the sports, whether it's going to come out, and then I'll come back to this. Mate, I'd be shocked if I don't like making, speculations or predictions. I don't like to quantify because I don't know how the universe will do everything. But I will say this: I would be shocked if the sports, if some things were not revealed, in our especially in our lifetime, but in the next like decade or so. Like, I absolutely think things will be revealed. And Mate, I think they know they know it's time to reveal these things. It's not even going to have to necessarily be people like us. I think they know they need to reveal things and that this is the time
But
of
do you
awakening.
think people like us are going to play a major role, like the people in the gematria community? Do you think we're going to play a major role, or do you just think it's going to become so painfully obvious that I keep saying in a lot of my codes, I was like, guys, this video today needed no gematria. It's so blatant. It needed no gematria. Do you think we'll get to that point and then maybe gematria will just be like the cherry on the cake to back up how corrupt everything is?
I think we're going to play a major part in helping people heal from being deceived. You know, like some people their favorite role models are athletes, and you know that I was a kid, you know, at one point as well, and that was the case. And like I think we're going to play a major part in healing the masses that figure out what they do, you know, whatever is revealed. And I'm happy to help people heal from it because it took some time for me as well to
I was going
process
to ask you that because we'll just do another 10 minutes. I was going to ask, how was it for you when you fully accepted it? Because for me, I've grown up, I'm not going to say I'm an elite athlete, but I'm pretty good at pretty much every sport.
Oh,
And
you're elite, lad.
yeah, it depends what you call elite, but because people say, well, you wasn't a full-time pro or anything, but I can play most sports at a high level. Put me against anybody, I'll compete. And when I really accepted that these sports were, I don't know, corrupt, rigged, predetermined, mate, it destroyed me for like months. Because I've given my life, so much of my life to playing them, which is, I still play them, that's beautiful, but watching them, gambling on them, buying the merchandise, meeting these stars, feeling overwhelmed by meeting them, which is obviously all positive to an extent, apart from maybe the gambling part. The rest of it's whatever. But when I realized I'd been deceived and fooled and played, whether it's by intention or not, it hurt me for months. And that's why I still to this day have this burning desire to put out content to show people. And it's not because I'm jealous that I'm not a pro athlete. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. That's not why I'm doing it.
No,
I'm
of course.
35. I'm not some 20-year-old who's just been released and he's bitter with the world and he thought it was. I'm 35, and it's tough, innit? It's tough to accept, and the truth hurts. The famous saying, "The truth hurts." Why do you think the truth hurts people so much? Is it because it shatters their illusions, or what is it?
So,
Why is it
yeah.
not embraced? Why is the truth not embraced? Why is it often denied or avoided?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the truth completely destroys the system that they were familiar with. And this takes much healing, and it takes a strong person to heal from this appropriately, without holding grudges and without holding things in their heart. So yeah, you asked for me, how was it? Well, the harder thing for me to deal with was more like the Hollywood stuff, and just the construction and the structure of the system. That was really tough for me. It took me a few months to heal from that darkness
We
that
all have those connections with our girlfriend, with our brothers, sisters, family members, classmates, where we've watched a movie together. And it's been a magical experience, because it is to an extent.
It is.
Then you
Yeah.
really figure out who's behind Hollywood and how satanic Hollywood is and all the symbolism behind it. And I told you, I haven't watched TV for 6 months, and I'm trying to change that now, because I do want to watch the new Matrix. I'm going to watch it with different eyes now. I love the Truman Show. I'd love to watch that again for the 95th time in my life and just really dissect it, because it does bring you a lot of joy. But when you start figuring out how these people got their roles and what they had to do to get to where they were and stay there, the likes of Tom Hanks, which we're not going to get into because anybody who knows what's going on knows what's going down with people like Tom Hanks. But It kind of breaks your heart, doesn't it? Because the things that bring you joy, you realize that maybe they were satanic, like there's a satanic element to them as well, rather than just this amazing show of talent. It's way deeper, isn't it?
Yeah, and just what I was gonna say was basically that, with the Hollywood thing, that's really what let me down, and that took a few months for me to truly heal from and accept and surrender to and realize that this is how things are at like right now.
But how did you
Um,
surrender and accept? I know it took a while, like anything, like time can cure all pain or whatever the saying is. Like, what was it? Was it one thing in particular that you were like, okay, this is what it is? I have to
so
be played. Like, what was it? Or did it just take time? Was it a variety of things?
time was large, but to be honest with you, it was my close friends that also knew this knowledge. Having a strong sense of love in your community, whether it's, two people or 10 or 100, um, it's really important. It
That's what my
really is.
Patreon is, bro. Sorry to cut you off, but
That's
my
okay.
Patreon is my family now. And I think a lot of them are realizing that. They are my family. They're not blood. I would say 90% of them I've never seen in my life, but they are my family because they have the same spirit as me and mindset and connection. Like it, it is so. I think without Patreon during this time, or maybe even YouTube, I would be feeling really isolated now because there's only 2 or 3 people in Mexico that are on my wavelength. It's not like I can hang out with them all the time. So I know what you mean about the community. I wish there was more people that saw what we saw. But when you do find those people, like we found each other, you've got to stay in contact, haven't you? It's so important on this journey to find a few people that you can trust who are on your page.
Yeah, and that's really what did it for me as far as feeling supported in my healing from all of this, just emotional healing, obviously, but not to be downplayed. And so to get to the sports part, when I realized about sports, which was shortly after the Super Bowl, and listen to this, I was watching the Super Bowl, and just beforehand, I like had a weird intuition. Like I was like, "Whoa, I think the Bucks are going to win this," even though obviously, the public was on the Chiefs. But I didn't know anything about decoding or anything. But I just had a weird feeling. I was like, "Okay, I think the Bucks are going to win this." And at the time, before I learned all this, I was a Tom Brady fan. So then, shortly after the Super Bowl, I learned about decoding from someone I will not mention because I don't like support that individual's work anymore. But he did introduce me to decoding, and when he did, mate, it literally did not take much healing because I had already healed from the Hollywood stuff, so it was not surprising at all.
Nice. Did you watch my video where I said the Bucks would win the Super Bowl before the season began?
Oh, mate, I wish. I'm gonna have
And
to check that out after this.
yeah, and this is a guy who I didn't even understand any rules of the NFL.
Wow.
I'd watch a game and they'd be like third down. I'm like, what's a third down? Third down and 5. I'm like, what's this? I had no idea. I had to watch some games occasionally. Living in the US, I'd go around to people's houses, watched all the Super Bowls. Got no enjoyment from them. I never really enjoyed watching football, but it is a show, isn't it? It is a
It
show.
is.
Like the actual games are just as much of a show as like the halftime Super Bowl show. It's the same thing. It's just a big show.
Mate,
The whole thing from the first
when
minute to the last. That's why it's ESPN, Entertainment Sports Programming Network, entertainment before sport. They're athletes. There's no denying it.
mate, the after
Go for it, mate.
oh yeah, absolutely. They're athletes, but I remember after a UFC fight, I remember one of the main fighters said, "I hope you enjoyed the show." Well, why is it a show? You
I know.
know?
It
What
should be, I
what
hope
does
you
that
enjoyed
mean?
the fight, shouldn't it? It should be, I hope you enjoyed the fight. I hope you enjoyed the fight, not I hope you enjoyed the show. And they'll speak truth,
Exactly.
don't they? They'll put it out there and tell you what it is. But people just, they don't. listen,
Mate,
not paying attention.
mate, do you remember, mate? It was the Gonzaga UCLA game, and the guy drilled the buzzer beater, and
Oh,
they literally,
from the mid court, and the players were already running on the court before it went in.
mate, the they said, "I knew it was going to go in."
I knew it was good. Yeah, exactly. There's multiple times you'd hear coaches saying, "I knew we were going to win today," and they just say it.
They just say it, and it's
I knew
and
we
it's
were, and
widely
they'll
accepted.
smile. They'll do it with a smug smile, which makes me think they know what they're doing here. That's why I think they do play us. It's not all the universe, and I know like we are being used to an extent, but there's definitely occultists, people out there who know that they're screwing with the public. Definitely. I know people may
Yeah.
deny that and think, no, everything just, it's a simulation. We all have a code. We're all fulfilling our role in the matrix. But I am at a point where I think there's people who know what they're doing. If I've done something bad, mate, or sneaky, I know that I've done something bad and sneaky. I know it in my soul. You just know if I've done something good, I know I've done something good. I think these people at the highest level who are deceiving the masses, I'm not a big fan of people saying, well, they don't really know what they're doing. They're just fulfilling their role. But
Yeah,
it's tough for me to process that and accept.
It's tough to process, but in another sense, even as deceivers, they are doing their role, right? Like they are like they are a deceiver and they're deceiving people. That's like their job.
But do you think they're aware that they're doing it? That's my question.
I mean, there's got to be some people, right? I mean, we don't have proof, and that's fine. We don't
Are
really
you
need.
aware when you've made a mistake, or maybe you haven't ever deceived anybody or lied to anybody? Are you aware that you've done that?
Well, yeah, we as humans are definitely aware of what we're doing, unless we're completely asleep, right? But I see what you're saying. So you're saying, do they even do they even know that? Well, mate, I mean, it's not provable, but I mean, we could pretty much gather that based on how they present themselves, it seems that some of the people have to know, right?
Yeah, but not everybody. Like, it's not like every athlete knows what's going on. That'd be impossible.
No, it's impossible. That'd be impossible, and lots of people would probably risk their life to tell us, to be honest.
But we've got to believe that the likes of Brady, LeBron, Messi at that level probably know more than the average athlete, correct? Maybe not everything, but they're probably a bit more aware of how it works than the average athlete.
Yeah, I would think so, right? Because they
Then again, maybe they don't. Maybe they have no idea. Maybe they have no idea, which I doubt. But maybe they're
yeah,
even AI. There could be robots. We don't know any of this, do we? This is the beauty of this knowledge. We don't truly know everything, but we question everything.
yeah, it's fun to question and think about these things, but the most important, for us to focus on, in my opinion, is just focusing on what we can prove and what we can decode.
Yeah, and find joy from this. Try help people with this information. Like at the beginning, it is tough. It feels like everything's negative. You have your illusions shattered, but the more you learn it, the more you accept it, the more you appreciate the world as well, don't you? And the little things that we probably didn't growing up, you appreciate the little things way more. So what's going on right now in the world? It's not all bad. Like we both say, all the darkness is being revealed, which means there must be light shining.
Yes, and
That's huge.
yes, it's so huge, and honestly, maybe for those of you listening, maybe y'all don't have a lot of friends that think like you, but there are a lot of people out there that do.
Yes.
And I would say honestly that it's, for me, my experience has mainly been positive through all of this, because there's always so many lessons to be learned. One more thing I will say, for those of you listening, it's very easy to get sucked into negativity and negative thinking in this community. And I absolutely think that is fraudulent and that is criminal, because people like us are powerful.
Yes, absolutely.
And our thoughts are powerful, and say, look, let me find some positives. I have all this knowledge. Why would I be sad or negative or depressed or pessimistic? No, you have all this knowledge and you gained it after not knowing anything, most likely. I could be wrong, but most likely. So this is a huge miracle in itself. Imagine miracles happening everywhere.
Yeah, and I believe it will eventually happen everywhere, to be honest. I think there will be a shift in consciousness.
There
And
will be, and there is.
when I spread this knowledge in other people, it increases, I don't know, just more awareness, more knowledge, and try and be positive with it. There's people who share this knowledge in a really negative and aggressive manner. I'm not going to say any names, but
Yeah, we're not saying names
I'm not going
today.
to say any names, but you've got to find a way of sharing this knowledge without petrifying people and making them feel worthless. Yeah, there's this knowledge is incredible. It can lead to a lot of positive changes in your life, and for me, it's nothing short of a beautiful, magical experience. This whole gematria awakening journey. But Jay Sol, I'm going to have to leave it there, mate. This has been amazing. I look up to you so much. I know people look up to me now, which is strange. You probably find it weird that I've just said that to you. But that's what you want. You want to be around people you respect and look up to and learn from. And that's a huge part of this journey. Stay away from toxic people who bring you down, and be around those that support you, who you can learn from. So much love, Jay Sol, really good guy. And I'm sure if you guys enjoyed this, we'll do it again in the future. So cheers, Sol. Any last words? Or are we good?
I would say I look up to you as well, mate, and much love to you, and cheers, of course.
Cheers, mate. All right, take care, and let's nail some NBA games.
Let's do it.
Cheers, mate. Peace.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.